Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Hey, we're back. We're back with more live from the Heartland for the week of February 18th. And once again, we are recording this on the 15th. And I'm really happy to bring on one of my favorite political people in the world, and that would be the one, the only, my Alderwoman, Maria Hadden. Good morning to you. Good afternoon, it really is. And it's great to have you here.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here with you, Michael.
I know you're working hard. There's a lot going on in our ward, in our city, and all around town. You were elected almost 4 years ago. You beat a longtime incumbent, and you are now up for your first re-election campaign. You're actively involved with that. And one of the things that keeps coming up from people who, both in support of you as well as people who are critical, is the situation around the homeless encampment at Toohey Park. And I myself have really thought you've been very transparent and open and done a lot of good things about it. It clearly irks some people. Give us a little bit of your thoughts on the Toohey Park homeless issue and the broader homeless issue.
Sure. We're in a crisis. We have a lot of people who are experiencing homelessness right now. While it's certainly always something that is impacting residents in our city, I think the past couple of years, economic hardship, pandemic, more economic hardship, rising housing costs, just a lot of factors have caused an increase in the number of people experiencing homelessness. Finding affordable housing is very difficult. There's not a day in my office that goes by where we're not having residents reach out to us about affordable housing issues. And so the problem of homelessness is something that's a city problem that we all should be involved in providing solutions to. And certainly as an elected official, that's one of my jobs. I think that a lot of times when problems that are universal social problems show up in your backyard when you haven't had to deal with them before, it can cause a lot of tension. So I think our community has actually been really fantastic in coming through in official and unofficial ways to provide support and assistance for our neighbors experiencing homelessness. My office and the Department of Family and Support Services have worked really hard to find housing for people because that is the solution, right? To people experiencing homelessness is to find them housing. And over this 18 months, we've matched 84 people with housing through rapid rehousing events. So I feel like we're in a good place. But as I've had conversations with neighbors, both in large group and public meetings and small groups and in my written communications, I think the important thing for people to realize is this isn't, there's no magic solution. The problem of homelessness is not going away anytime soon. What we have to get better about are the funds, the resources, and the programs that we have available to help our constituents, one, hopefully avoid becoming homeless, but two, if they are experiencing homelessness, to find a swift path out of it. So it's going to continue to be an issue for our city, and I imagine for our neighborhood in the coming years.
Well, I hear a lot of discussion about it, and there's a lot of misinformation. I mean, I drive by there every day, and that encampment on Toohey has really been very orderly and kind of a peaceful vibe. And I noticed as recent as yesterday, there are very few of those tents left. It clearly it's sort of been clearing out. There was talk about turning that building that belonged to St. Francis Hospital across from the Jewel. Is that still in play for a place for residency for people?
Yeah, so it wasn't just talk. We had a very large, in-depth community process about proposed shelter there. So Northside Housing, which has operated a shelter, a men's shelter specifically on the north side of the city for the past 40 years, was looking for a new home. They were forced out of their facility in December of 2021 due to landlord negligence in their facility in Uptown. So they had to leave that facility, find temporary housing for their clients for more than a year now, and had been looking for a new home. So with more than 70% of our residents surveyed, and that was like over 1,200 people in support of it, it is part of a key social network we need in order to help people come out of homelessness. So their shelter will be for around 70 people. They serve men experiencing homelessness, and it's a residential facility where average client stays about 80 days. So there are different types of shelters throughout the city. There are insufficient spaces. This won't be a shelter that, hey, someone experiencing homelessness like right now, right, living unsheltered can just like get a spot in right away. But it is part of our larger system of helping people to come out of homelessness. So the other thing the city's doing is purchasing a few of the motels over on Lincoln Avenue in the 40th Ward to increase the space available that nonprofits in the city have in order to provide housing for people who are experiencing homelessness.
Thank you for sharing that. That's good information, and I'll certainly spread the news on that. Any
Yeah.
timeline on that building up there on Clark?
We've actually got a big meeting on Friday. So the process that we had was to, get community support because they need a special use permit. Now, special use permit is granted and goes under the Zoning Board of Appeals. So they're in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals this Friday. And so we've got, some folks coming to speak in support of it. We've submitted all the information from our community process as well. And should they gain the approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals, they'll be able to move forward with their purchase and construction. They think June they'll be open. So we've also, if everyone's ever interested in anything related to any development process that we've had, you can find it on the website, 49thward.org. There is a tab that says development proposals. You can look at past development proposals, current proposals, see all the data, the survey results, all the updates that we put there. So, yeah, so that one, hopefully everything goes well on Friday and we're able to, do our part in the 49th Ward to continue to provide more options for people experiencing homelessness throughout the city.
I'll be checking out the progress as I hit the McGaw and Evanston in the mornings for a swim.
There you go.
I love driving up Clark on my way to doing that, checking out the neighborhood. Maria Hadden, in addition or beyond the homelessness encampment and those questions, what issue, what topic have you had the most pushback on, and how have you responded, or how might you respond?
Um, that's a big one, and you touched on the shelter already. There's a small percentage of people who were really strongly against the shelter being located there. From our survey, like I said, we had like 72% in support. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I get strong pushback on. Um, sometimes I don't get strong pushback on a lot. I guess I'll say the Tui Park and the shelter are probably the biggest things. Some of the things people question, it's hard to give. I'll say I'm careful not to give credence to misinformation. There's a lot of people pushing a lot of misinformation. I'll say even around development, maybe, and that's a good topic to talk about. There's a handful of people, mainly in the real estate industry, who've been pretty vocal about how, oh, Maria Hadden, cancels all these developments and, doesn't let development go forward. And it's really unfortunate that people have to resort to misinformation in order to try and prove a point. But I'll say we've got a really great community development process in the 49th Ward. You can also find that on our webpage. And while we're not a ward that has a ton of available space for new construction, so like we're not like a 47th Ward or like a first ward where you're going to see a lot of new developments. But we are seeing a lot of building rehabs. And then we've got two exciting proposals at Howard and Paulina and Howard and Ashland that people should check out on the website. Howard and Paulina has proposed about 110 units of affordable housing, brand new commercial space, looking to preserve that historic Warner building and bring some beautiful new construction in an equitable transit-oriented development project right to Howard Street next to the Red Line. So likely have some community meetings on that starting in April as the owners of that space and the developers of that project get some through some of their city hurdles. And then we've been working for a couple of years, both through first the community process and now through bit of process with the city for the two city-owned lots, or only two publicly owned lots at Howard and Ashland, where the Peterson Garden is right now, or the Hello Howard Garden, where we are looking to build some 30 to 40 units of new affordable home ownership opportunities with a new low equity co-op. So, we don't have a ton of opportunity for building new things, but I've been focused a lot on building quality, lasting projects that are really meeting the needs of 49th Ward residents.
Well, thanks for sharing that, and I do appreciate how I get you to come on and give a little tour, talking about the neighborhood, and I'm sure we'll have you back and you'll keep us posted. A couple of things that have come up. There is it was a medical marijuana facility. I think it's called Zen Leaf, and it's on Rogers, I believe. Uh,
Yes.
and I was in there once, I confess, checking it out. And I'm wondering, there's talk about relocating that. Anything on that?
Yeah. So again, that was one of our larger community meetings that was attended. It's called Zen Leaf. Verano Holdings owns Zen Leaf, and so it was the Green Gate dispensary. It was a medicinal dispensary, but when recreational licenses became available, they were automatically granted to people who already had medicinal licenses. So that initial individual owner sold to Verano Holdings, and it's now Zenleaf. So they've been looking for another location since they purchased that space. Um, the original dispensary really catered to kind of just folks in the neighborhood. Zenleaf is one of the biggest brands, and they like to think of themselves as the Apple Store of cannabis products. So I haven't been to one of their stores yet, but so they want to keep a location in Rogers Park, but they need a bigger space, and they have a few other needs, mainly access to a lot of parking and access to, they want a location near kind of high areas of vehicle transit. So they initially had their eyes on the old Leonis site, so over at Sheridan and Moore. So we went through a whole community process because they would require a zoning change for that location. But through community feedback and ultimately after that multi-hundred person community meeting, we had another locally owned business that expressed an interest in the Leona site. And so I declined to approve their zoning permit at that time. So for those who have not been aware of some of these neighborhood happenings, it's JB Alberto's who expressed an interest in the Leona site to
Yeah.
purchase it, rehab it, do a fast casual space. So there's still some interest there. The owner currently says he doesn't want to sell his space. He's giving it in kind to an aldermanic candidate who's been using it as his campaign office for a few months, and that's a whole other story. But we
I'm
looked for
not going there.
we looked for locations for Zenleaf. So there's pretty tight zoning restrictions in the city of Chicago for cannabis dispensaries. So you can't just set up anywhere. And there were very few locations in our ward that were kind of meeting their needs, but also meeting the city criteria. One of the first places before they selected Leona's that we really kind of tried to push them to was actually the Gateway Center. So the big shopping center at Howard and Clark with the Jewel and a bunch of other spaces. It's kind of like the one space where you find a few more of the kind of corporate or franchise businesses in the 49th Ward. It also is right there at the Howard Red Line stop. It's at Clark and Howard. You get Evanston traffic as well, and there's plenty of parking. So they finally came back around and are actually looking at a location at the Gateway Center. So what used to be the Diamond Room for a short while, the
Oh,
Ethiopian
yeah.
Diamond, it's just the space just north of Aspen Dental. So they are submitting some language. They don't need a zoning change. They'll have to do an amendment to the plan development. So that project is a plan development, or PD. So there'll have to be a text amendment to that to add the use of cannabis dispensary in order for them to lease the space. So we'll be bringing that to folks, I think, at our March town hall. So we likely won't go through a whole other community process. We have a ton of data where people were really supportive of the dispensary, but wanted a different location. I think this will provide a solution for everybody.
Oh, that sounds good. And we don't know any more about Leona's site. I mean, I think I was talking to people at JB Alberto's, and he had told me that it really wasn't going to work out. Me, I have always think about opening another place, but at 81, I'm not going to do it. I promise.
I'm hoping so the space has been vacant of a tenant for like 6 years now. So it's been vacant since before I came in, and at one point, the current owner, before I was even sworn into office technically, but after I'd won the election, he came talking about wanting to do some kind of high-rise development. So I'm not sure what his initial intentions were when he bought the space, but we've had nearly a half dozen local people interested in leasing or buying that space, but he hasn't budged on his price. There's been a lot of barriers he's kind of put in the way. So I'm hoping that maybe with some changing times, maybe he'll change his mind, become more amenable. But people have wanted to do an event space. People have wanted to do a cidery. People have wanted to do restaurants. So it's a coveted location. I hope that after 6 years of it being vacant and doing nothing with it, I hope that, he's able to find a tenant or a buyer that would benefit our community.
That'd be great. Let me ask about lead pipes. Someone brought up lead pipes. I know that there's people in the neighborhood checking on pipes. Some company, I don't know, was out of Texas, but they were in my backyard. And what's going on with lead pipes in our neighborhood?
I don't know about this company in from Texas.
I could
Um,
have
I,
been from anywhere. It could have
I
been
can I
Illinois.
can tell you that one, 24/7, 365. If you're worried and want to check, we have free lead testing kits. You can call 311 or go through the website and get a free lead testing kit. 2023 finally starts the city's efforts of kind of mass lead service line replacement, though. So every new main replacement project and sewer main replacement project that's been kind of planned out for this year going forward will also include free lead service line replacement for building owners and homeowners in that area. So we've got the project at Howard and at Ashland and Birchwood and kind of Rogers right now. That project was slated last year. It was supposed to start last summer, so that project won't include it. But we have two more big water projects in our ward this year, and when those projects get kicked off, they have included in the cost of the project free lead service line replacement. So I think from all of the kind of capital money we've put towards it, we're going to finally see more of the lead service line replacement happening in homes around the city.
That sounds good.
Mhm.
Maria Hadden, let me ask you about police community relations. We have this election coming up on the 28th, and one of the most important things, besides electing a mayor and other officials, is this new police district councils or police oversight or
Yeah.
community control of the police. I mean, we're really moving in a good direction. And
Mhm.
I'm just wondering, there isn't enough talk, I don't feel, about it anywhere about that aspect of the election. But just in general, how are police community relations in our ward?
I think they're pretty good, at least with my office. We have pretty low attendance at CAPS meetings, so I think one of the challenges that we're really hoping the district council electeds can do is to create those spaces for community police engagement. So you can, the last CAPS meeting I was at, there was like two people, right? So a lot of people don't come to CAPS meetings, but CAPS meetings aren't the way they used to be 20 years ago. There's not a lot of information exchange because there's it's not allowed to, right? So there's some challenges with the structure of the CAPS program right now that I think make a lot of people feel like they can go and share some information. Police can go and share some information, but that's pretty much it. Um, what we see in our district is we have a very active kind of community policing program. They do a lot of activities. outreach to the high schools and youth programs. But unless you're completely tapped into that, there's no kind of other real space. Like when we get to discussions about police policies or police staffing, right? Kind of things like that I think I get a lot of questions on, or that come down to impacting the service delivery in our area. There haven't been spaces for that. And that's what we're looking to see with these new district council members, elected officials who can build these additional bridges and spaces so that constituents can talk more with our police. And hopefully, that the goal is we have better services.
That is good. Maria Hadden, let me ask you a little bit about our schools and our treasured parks. We are the location of a big chunk of Chicago's lakefront with the Great Lake, Michigan. We have a beautiful park up here, Loyola Park.
Mhm.
Anything you want to share about schools and our parks?
Our schools are doing really great. I'll say if you guys haven't seen it yet, we've got two really cool Black History Month activities coming up. So one is actually at Eugene Field. So on Thursday, the 23rd at 4 p.m. We've got a post on it on my Facebook page. You can register. But Sherman Dilla Thomas is going to be a guest speaker, kind of historian, Chicago historian, to come and talk with students and community members at Eugene Field. So that's pretty cool. Our schools are always doing, I think, pretty great programs and projects like that, offering opportunities for even if you don't have kids, right? For you to come in. And then we've got great annual Black History Month assembly taking place February 26th at 12:30 at the Loyola Park Fieldhouse. Spring programming will be starting in the parks pretty soon as well. And so, whether it's a park near you or another park in our ward, I would encourage people to check out the Park District's website. Check out, we have a School Shine in 49 section in the newsletter. So, if you're ever curious what's going on in the schools, there's a lot of good stuff. And they're always looking for volunteers, I will say. And so, if you have some free time on your hands, they're both good places to tap into.
When I was coming back from this press conference where David Orr came out and Jan Chakowski came out for Chewy, I went to get on the L, and the escalator was not working, and there was just a line of young people coming up the stairs. And all of a sudden, I realized they were from Senn High School. So I had a little bit of a nice little dialogue and talked about you and all that kind of thing. What is the best part of your job, Maria?
Oh, let's see. There are a lot of good parts. Anything where I get to just engage with people directly in person, really. Um, the last couple weeks, I've had a few visits at just some of our independent living senior homes where I'll tell you guys, you heard it here first. This week, I committed to this year or next planning a senior dance. Um, uh,
I'm
yeah,
in.
yeah. So the folks over at Natalie Salmon
We do
House
the jitterbug.
are willing to host. Jitterbug is too old for you, Michael. Nice try, nice try. But getting to engage with people, like, we're not always the source of programming, but I get to participate and highlight different programming and doing things where I get to add to our community building, knitting our social fabric together, getting to actually fulfill people's requests. Sometimes that actually happens. Like I can things work and we can solve little problems. That's probably the best part.
Well, you're doing a good job. And I just want to say I love you. I do. And I really appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you.
And I'm rooting for you in this next election. And it won't be long. We'll have you right back on the show.
Won't be long. Thank you so much, Michael. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Maria Hadden.